Hello to my awesome 6th graders. This is Miss Jen. We're doing another video today from Lesson 2 from Module 2, where you guys are very well aware of what opposites and absolute values and rational numbers are because we've been looking at them for a long time. But today we're going to use that information to try to find some answers in a different way than what we have been doing. So I'm going to start our video off by giving you the title of this lesson, Identifying Opposites and Absolute Values of Rational Numbers. But you'll see our vocabulary words that you should know are underlined in green. So before we go any further, I want to go over the vocabulary words that you need to be able to recall and you need to be familiar with. The first one is opposite. The opposite in math is a number that is equidistant from 0 to another number. Remember, equa means equal, distant means how far. They're equally far from 0 to another. That's the opposite. So an example for that would be, y'all know I have 11 kids, so I will use this number. Negative 11 has an opposite of positive 11. Those are opposites. Now the next word is absolute value. The absolute value of a number is a number's distance from 0. Remember, there are 4 things that I told you needed to memorize about absolute value. If you have forgotten them, go back and watch the absolute value video. But also you can look in your journal for the 4 things that you need to memorize. The last is about rational numbers. In the book, to be honest with you, the definition is a little bit confusing. Pardon the bell in the background. But a rational number is any number that can be written in fraction form, but remember the denominator cannot be 0, or it can be written as a decimal number. Those are the vocabulary words I needed you to remember for today. Okay, we've just passed out the worksheets that you have lab class time to work on for today. But we're going to go over the directions and do a couple examples of each of them to make sure that you're well on your way and you understand what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, let's look at the first set of instructions. It says that it wants us to graph each number and its opposite. I need you guys to underline that because what I've been seeing is that you guys will do one or the other, but you're not following the directions and doing both. So make sure you graph the number that they give you and then its opposite. The number that they've given to us for number 1 is 3.5. If you guys look on the number line where 0 is, how many units of space is there between 0 and 5?
5.
There's 5. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that lets you guys know we're using a scale of 1. So if you were to go and label each of those, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wants us to plot the point 3.5. 3.5 has to be greater than 3, but less than 4. What does that 0.5 mean? Doesn't that mean it's a half?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're going to put a point right there saying that is where 3.5 is, and go ahead and label it. We know that the opposite of a number is equidistant from 0. So if we know that, that means that we can take this line over here and do -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5. What is the opposite of 3.5? -3.5, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we would count from 0, 1, 2, 3. It has to be between -3 and between -4. So we're going to plot a point there, and that is -3.5. That's how you're going to do the first 4 problems. Now let's look at the next section. The next section asks us to name the opposite of each number. And I've told you guys the trick to that is look at whatever number that they've given to you and you're going to flip the signs. So on number 5 where they give you 4.25, right now it's a positive 4.25. So if you're going to name the opposite of it, you would write negative 4.25. And just as a reminder, anytime you have a positive number, you do not have to put the positive sign. It's understood. But if you want the world to know that you're using a negative number, you have to put that negative sign. The next set of instructions asks us to name the absolute value of the number. I want you to underline absolute value. If you guys will remember from class, the goalpost lines, 2 parallel lines, are the symbol for absolute value. If you have forgotten all the rules that apply to absolute value, you can use your journal or watch the previous video on absolute value. But let me ask you this, and y'all answer loudly. Can absolute value ever be negative? No. No, it cannot, because every single number takes up some space between 0 and itself. So right here, just so that you guys know, look at number 8. I want you to insert the goalpost on either side of 2 1/3. On either side of that, put the goalpost there. That way you know I'm looking for the absolute value of that number. We know the absolute value is its distance from 0. So what would the absolute value of 2 1/3 be? 2 1/3. They stay exactly the same. Now I'm going to do number 11 with you, and then I'm cutting you loose. The directions say, the table shows elevations of checkpoints along a marathon route. Use the table to answer problems 11 through 13. Okay, we have 5 different checkpoints on a marathon, A, B, C, D, E. And each one of them have different elevations. I want you guys to remember, when we do our vertical number line, 0 is what we consider to be sea level, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we have a negative number, that is below sea level. And if we have a positive number, that is above sea level. Number 11 asks us to write the opposite value of each checkpoint elevation. Underline opposite value. On your number line, you need to write a different section for A equals this, B equals that, all the way through E. A is 15.6, so the opposite of A would be negative 15.6. B in the table is 17.1, so the opposite of that is negative 17.1. C, they give us 5.2. The opposite of 5.2 is negative 5.2. D is they give us negative 6.5. We start off with a negative number, so when we flip those signs, we're going to end up with a positive 6.5. And the exact same procedure is going to be done with E. We're given negative 18.5, and the opposite of that, if we flip the signs, would be positive 18.5. On number 12, I want you to underline the word closest. On number 13, underline the word furthest. Guys, these are the different skills that you're going to have to know in identifying opposites, absolute values of rational numbers, and also how we convert.